Hello, everybody. I am Brandon Battick, and we are here with a Disturbing the Priest panel. I am joined by Carcass John of the Metal Roundtable and the Metal Madman, which you can see on all social media platforms and any Slayer related show, thrash metal. You're all over the place, man. I see you popping up at all parts of the
Everywhere.
country. I don't know how you could afford it.
Country this year. I can't afford it. Do I look like I can afford it here? The other thing, do you want to hear the travesty? I went so hard. I've been straight edge for 2 months. 2 months. Do you know the edginess I have? Do you know how hard it is for a guy of my stature in the drinking game to not even open a Pabst? It's a lot right now, but I'm doing it for Slayer. I got to be around for these fans. I got to be everywhere. Where would they be without? Where would the metal world be without me?
Okay, but here's the thing. I don't notice a difference in your personality
Yeah,
whether you're
it's
drinking or
worse now.
not.
Right.
It's the
Yeah.
same thing.
I got,
I just talking to you, I don't notice anything. Maybe I guess it's
that's
just
what
in
I
your
needed to.
blood. I
It's
always
in
thought
my.
you were just hammered all the time.
No, man, that's what people say. They're like, "What drugs you on?" I'm like, "I never did hard drugs. I like to drink, but you know what? This is me. If anything, it's gotten more intense. I fall asleep. I get right up. I'm running around. I'm filming videos. I'm throwing chairs. I'm impressing metal moms. It's great. I got to tell for all you kids out there, do what you want to do. I'm not here to judge you, but I clearly don't need it. So I'm like, make my skin look. It still looks like shit. Whatever. It's a good thing. We don't know need any God in the next 2 years.
Well, we're here talking about death metal today. What we're going to do is share our opinions on who are the big four of death metal. And we're going to go around here and share our four and then pretty much just do an open discussion about it. You know, there's a lot to talk about with the big four of death metal. It's very subjective. In my opinion, there's a lot of it's I don't know, there's a lot of picks. It was really hard for me to make my list, and you know, talking to these guys before we started recording, it seems like it was hard for everybody here.
Mm.
I'm gonna kick us off here, and then we'll go with Carcass John and the Metal Madman. So, all right, if when it comes to death metal, you know, this is the Metallica of death metal. You have to have Cannibal Corpse, in my opinion. Uh, what is there to say about Cannibal Corpse that hasn't been said already? Just punishing music, super influential, just great Florida death metal right here. This is my favorite record from them right here, Butchered at Birth. Just amazing art, just really brutal vocals and lyrics as well. Lyrics that were quite influential to the genre. And then here I have this was a band I was kind of swapping in and out, but I just at the end of the day I'm like I got to include these guys. Obituary, I have Slowly We Rot and Cause of Death here. These are like them the albums played live in their entirety here, which sounds pretty good, but yeah, the vocals kind of hit or miss for me to be honest, but that like brutal guitar tone, crushing music. Obituary is really good. Yeah, the first two are like the ones that are like, okay, this band is definitely notable, but yeah, I just feel like they deserve a spot. Also some more Florida representation. And let's keep it going with Death. I think like to not include Death on the big four of death metal, extremely influential, arguably a band that did help invent the genre. Of course, there's some debate there whether, you know, this band or that band did it between two, in my opinion. But these guys, getting more technical later in their career, one of my favorite discographies in the genre. Amazing stuff. Amazing fucking stuff. And last but not least, Morbid Angel. I think Morbid Angel was, you know, is a lock for the big four. Altars of Madness alone, one of the greatest death metal records of all time, in my opinion. And for that, that's like a lock for me. So after going through my list a couple times, like I'm pretty confident with my picks. Yeah, Obituary, I did kind of swap out like, you know, time and time, but I don't know. I'm pretty confident of their place in the big four of death metal. So that's my pick. Let's bring it over to Carcass John for your number four or four
Okay, well,
picks.
I can't agree with you more on death, and I think this is going to be a lock with all three of us.
Yeah.
But I love Human, but I like the fact that Death started off as a complete death metal band, and then they evolved into other technical elements, even thrash, even ambience. Like this thing's got some killer ambient feel to it. So Death has got to be on the list. And then I got to wholeheartedly agree with you on Cannibal Corpse. This is Kill. This is one of my favorite. I also like Evisceration Plague. I actually like the new stuff as much as the old. And then as I asked my wife, who's a diehard Cannibal Corpse fan, that's when you know you got a good marriage, when you can agree on death metal. But I said, has Cannibal Corpse ever put out a bad record or a Saint Anger like record or whatever? And the answer is absolutely not. Every record they have, it may be a reinvention of the previous one, but it's all good. There's no filler. It's all killer in their catalog. And here's where we're going to differ. And I had Obituary in my stack, but I had to include my namesake, Carcass. I think that they've done a little. They're kind of like Death. They've done a little bit of everything from grindcore to melodic death metal to technical death metal. But as we've discussed, they are a death metal band. Period. End of story. And I think that it would. And they've been around a long time. And once again, they've never put out a stinker, in my opinion. So here's where it really gets dicey. I had Immolation, Dawn of Possession out. To me, they've only done really 2 great records, but they haven't really put out a terrible record. But I went ahead and went with Bolt Thrower.
Good choice.
Since we could go international, you and I talked about that prior, and I said, do we need to stay in the States or can we go international? And you said the world is your oyster. So here I am with 2 UK bands. And don't even get me started on the Swedish death metal thing, because we could go on for days. I mean, they've written books and made movies about the Swedish death metal scene, and maybe we can talk about that later. But Bolt Thrower was my 4th choice, just barely nipping Obituary and Immolation, just by a hair.
Awesome. Yeah, that like Swedish death metal, that topic alone could be a whole episode within itself.
Easily.
Honestly. Yeah, definitely. All right, Metal Madman.
I mean, I gotta go with the ones we talked. Death, clearly. If somebody tells me Death is not on Rushmore, take your Winger album, okay? Take your freaking Limp Bizkit album, and you know where to shove it. Death automatic. Not a bad album, not a bad song. They're like the Metal Horror Madman, perfection. Everybody wants to be them, but you can't be them. Obituary's got to be on there to me, because they have that groove to them, and they reinvent themselves in their later age, which is cool. Out of the hardcore bands touring with them, you go there, you crack someone's skull open, right? That groove. I like that commercial song, I Don't Care. That was a song I played over and over and over. I'd have 2 metal moms in the back seat. That's another podcast. 2 bands, though, to me, that need to be, first of all, the first death metal show. I have a song, Long Island, Strong Island, a band called Deicide. Some people love them, some people hate them. But those early albums, that self-titled, oh, that's a great album with that song from Evil Dead on it. My Once Upon a Cross, controversial band. I mean, Glenn's known, you love or hate him. Most people think he's a dick, and he'll tell you he's a dick. He says what he says. They're brutal. They're uncompromising. They bring that satanic zombie. Everything vile about death metal is in Deicide. But for me, a band like we're Bolt Thrower, that was a strong pick. That I mulled them. But I went with another band, a band actually from Long Island, Strong Island, where I'm from originally. I'd get my Stromboli, my rigatoni, my macaroni from the pork store, a band called Suffocation. Suffocation is a brutal band that's never compromised. They've always delivered. Maybe one album that had some production problems, but I think that's a band that can hang with any of these bands. But when it comes to the Rushmore, I really think you put Death. I think Death is up here. And here's the other band, right? They talked about inventing death metal, and you go back and forth with, but there's Death to me, and there's everybody else, because just like John said too, that you talk from Scream Bloody Gore then to get into Symbolic, and they're just both bangers. One just raw extreme craziness, and the other thing could be a mainstream metal album, right? And they pulled it off well. So that's my Mount Rushmore.
Nice. Yeah, like Death, that discography is just fucking
Oh,
awesome.
perfect.
And they're all the thing about Death is even with the lineup changes, even with the
Yes.
different personnel, they're consistently they maintain the integrity that Chuck wanted to present. And you know that it's a Death record from the minute that first riff hits you.
You really do. You really, you know what?
100%.
I loved it. The only thing I didn't like that Chuck did was that Control Denied project, right? And he didn't sing on it. It just hit me the wrong way when I was younger. When I heard those vocals, it just, if I didn't know he was on the album, maybe I'd like it. But that's the only thing I've ever had with him that I didn't like. And I mean, it's not that. So,
Yeah. So, I'd love to know what other bands did you guys consider for like your big four? Are there any that were like in the big four that you took out after a while? Because like for me, it was definitely like Possessed. Because I
yeah.
think they invented the genre. Like literally the demo tape, like it's death metal,
Yep.
There's definitely an emphasis on thrash for sure, but like thrash metal is proto death metal. That's like
Well, and that's why I bounced Morbid Angel early, because I think they're more of a thrash band. Although, I mean, when they went to a 3-piece and Steve Tucker was on bass, I mean, they were pretty brutal. That was heavy, brutal death metal, and so they sort of transcended back and forth. But to your point, those first two Morbid Angels are absolute rippers, and just like the big four, the Metallica, whatever that is. There's so many better picks in my opinion, but you can't really leave one out without the other. So that's what was hard about this. But I thought about Entombed also. I thought, there's another band, and then if you wanted to, and even though they only did one album, Carnage, and that's why I put Carcass in there, because Michael Amott went straight from Carnage as a 17-year-old kid after doing a stint in Candlemass, and went into Carcass and made it less gurgling and gargling and more death metal. So, but it was, man, you could say Malevolent Creation.
Yep.
I mean, and I looked at Suffocation too. You can't deny those dudes. In fact, I just saw them and Terrence is the only original member left, and they're still killing it.
That's the thing about them. Right?
Yeah.
Great death metal bands survived those lineup changes, and ones that Cancer was up there for me, because that debut record is such a I don't think they have a bad album either.
Right here.
Yeah. Right.
Yep. Fucking awesome, dude.
So fucking good. Cancer, Dismember, Grave, Gore Guts. Like I was having a real fucking hard problem. And the thing I really like about Dismember and Entombed is they went from death metal to that death and roll phase in the 90s. And I like that era just as much as the death metal versions of those bands. I think they're crazy talented, but you can't put them all in there, right? I mean, I had 10 I could probably do.
And part of the reason I didn't put Therion, because that first Therion is an absolute crushing slab of metal, and then Sentenced, same thing. They just got weird, man. Like really fast.
The opera stuff.
They went to tuxedos and violins and girls and prom dresses, and I'm like, whoa, what? I mean, and I know the Swedes are eclectic and weirdly creative and all, but I didn't, despite the fact that I don't know, I couldn't see it. Yeah, I mean, even the Haunted kind of went kind of weird for a little bit, but Haunted is probably more of a thrash band, should we say? But that's the thing about the Swedish scene, is that it could be any of 40 bands. So you should maybe just say Death, the Swedish death metal scene, and then two other picks.
Yeah, Entombed had like a very influential like guitar sound as well, like that guitar, that like buzzsaw guitar tone. It's fucking awesome.
That Left Hand Path album,
mid-range all the way to the top.
Yeah.
It's so good. And then, I always think of death metal. It's just hit me when I was talking about myself, because it has to be about myself being all over the country. When I was at Louder Than Life, seeing, because you think of death metal, right? Small place, you think of clubs, you think of gritty, dirty, a bunch of alcoholic scumbag guys ramming into, fighting each other, but not fighting anybody. They never land a punch. But to be in front of like 70,000 people, to see Carcass and to see Cannibal Corpse, to hear it with that sonic sound, I couldn't believe how good it carried, because I actually thought it was going to suck. I'm like, I'm not going to like this for bands like this that I'm used to in a club. It was insane. Insane. And they had the speakers anywhere you went, you could hear it as loud as the front row. And it was just like a thing from metal to me, to be like, these bands that you don't think of in something this size, and everybody was into it, because death metal gets a bad rap, right? Because the vocals, the delivery, it's got a groove to it, it's got a bounce to it. If you once you get into it, it's got some sonic stuff in there. I felt it. I was twerking for everybody there. This big ass was shaking, and it was shaking to Cannibal Corpse. Song titles I won't mention because I don't want them to have to edit too much. So I just wanted to throw that in a big area. It was crazy.
Yeah, I got to see Carcass on the Headbangers boat last year.
Oh,
the year prior to that, with Napalm Death and Exodus.
Damn.
Anyway, and once again, when they're outside, the sound sounded good. When they're in a little pub, it sounded good. When they're on the back deck and the wind's blowing like crazy, it still sounded good. So,
Right.
And as much as the technology is part of the death metal mystique, because there's not a lot of effects, there's not a lot of pedals, these guys just plug in and freaking grind. And so sometimes technology gets in the way because it sounds too polished. I mean, that's always my complaint. Well, it sounds too polished. But on a situation like that, man, you need technology, and that's why it sounded good, because it's like you said, the sound was epic.
Good point. Yeah.
Sound works so well live. Like, it translates so well. I got to see Morbid Angel with Revocation. And Revocation,
Damn.
it's like, it's a very technical sound. So you're afraid that it's just going to be a wall of sound. Everything's going to just drown, all the instruments out. Really good. Like, even Morbid Angel, man. Like, you can hear every note. Nothing sounds drowned out. Like, honestly, death metal really translates live well, I think.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about death metal is, too, it's kind of like grindcore. It's either really good or not good at all.
That's a good point.
If you can play, I think death metal and thrash, those two genres, it's hard to hide your mistakes. It's hard to hide your mistakes, because you either can or you can't.
Yeah.
You can thrash it up, or you can cover it up, and it never sounds good when you cover it up, man.
It's so true.
Yeah. How do you guys feel about Autopsy?
Wow. That's another banger. You could put them up. I mean, you could make that argument. That's another band with not a bad album.
Like, pretty influential as well, with their lyrical themes and everything.
Yep.
There's some like doomy elements in their music too. Like, some really fucking
I
awesome
love
records.
the death metal bands that play. I always loved Atheist, because you're just ready to punch someone in the fucking face, and then jazz comes on. You're like, let me calm down for a second, and then it gets extreme again. A band that I saw live that I'll never forget, they're legends in Chicago, is Broken Hope, and they did Captain Howdy by Twisted Sister. That band they just could never get to that next level. Do you remember when all the death metal bands were covering regular metal on the compilations in the fucking 90s and 2000s? It was fucking crazy. They did that song. It shouldn't work. It shouldn't work at all, but it worked, and that was a band I thought deserved more respect. I can't put them in the Rushmore, but live Broken Hope was a sick show.
I think the only death metal cover I've heard that I've liked is Zero the Hero, when
that's a great one.
Cannibal Corpse covered a song of Born Again. I thought that was fucking excellent.
So speaking of that, Brandon, we just had this discussion on the Metal Roundtable. What do you think about the 6 Feet Under doing covers?
Like,
I don't like them personally.
I'm for it. It's like, I'm always into covers when it's a band that kind of like crowbars them into a studio record, and there's like a ton of them. Then it just gets like Megadeth, for example, where like you listen to a record and there's like 4 covers on it. where it's like sometimes that does get annoying, but honestly, pretty good. I'll have to revisit some of them, but I did listen out of
Strongly
curiosity.
disagree here,
You know,
sir. As the host, I don't mean to insult you, but every release of their cover songs gotten worse and worse to me. And doing ACDC, which I've had enough ACDC in the first place. When these young punk kids start telling me about ACDC, I'm like, calm your asses down. They've had their highlights. It's overplayed. I don't. If I hear Black and Black one more time, I'll bring back that black metal thing we did back in the 90s, kids. That movie, we didn't need to fucking watch the movie. I was reading it in Metal Maniacs magazine. But I can't. I was the biggest 6 feet. When he left Corpse, Haunted by 6 Feet Under is one of my favorite death metal albums of all time. I thought the follow-up was great. I thought he had some moments. I know now, he didn't live the best lifestyle. He was a dick. A lot of people said the vocals sucked. His albums suck. But I just can't do those cover. I would be me and my friends would be loaded listening to those songs, just saying the worst shit I can't repeat here because today's times don't allow it. But I'm going to disagree on those ones. That's the one cover that it keeps coming out. I'm like, please, I can't. I got to. I'll listen to Britney fucking Spears instead. Hit me, baby, one more time. Like, literally hit me instead of listening to those albums. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah,
I'm into covers. Like, and hearing like a genre that's so far away from the original material is just interesting to me.
I get it.
But like, I see where you're coming from. Like,
if you want a covers album that actually makes sense, Sepultura put out a cover with during the Derek Green era, and they did everything from U2 to Massive Attack to Piranha by Exodus, and it sounds absolutely killer. I think what is that, Roarback? If you get the deluxe edition of Roarback, it has a second CD of like 7 or 8 cover tunes, and they're exceptional.
I'll check it out.
Including U2's Bullet in a Blue Sky. They do Exodus, Piranha.
Never heard
They do Angel by Massive Attack, which is talk about being as far away. That's almost Britney Spears territory, as you mentioned. But it sounds good. I mean, they did it right. But just to pump out a covers record, just to pump one out. I mean, where is Warpath? Give me that again, please. And
that was great.
And I'll buy into it again.
Yeah.
That's so funny, man. I know they had some like covers out there. I've heard like Piranha's fucking great. Dude, I had no idea they covered U2 though. Like, it's like, did you just like, throw a dart in a record store, whatever it landed on, just to cover it?
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know how they made it. I don't know how they decided to do whatever list of songs, but the album itself, Roarback, is pretty good. But the second CD is, and you can't get it on vinyl, unfortunately, but it's worth buying the deluxe edition of the CD.
I got to go back to that Derek Green. I was such a Max purist. I was one of those dicks that just wouldn't even give it a chance. I feel like if they named it a different band, I would have at the time. So I just never explored it, right? And now I got to go back to hear this because you know what you're talking about, so I'm going to listen to this.
There's a couple of those records that are really good. Nations is not one of them, but there are a couple that are really, really good. And we just saw them on their last, I guess I don't know if they're retiring or whatever, but they just did a This Is the End type tour, and it's so weird that now Max and Igor are touring, doing all Sepultura sets, like they did at Hell's Heroes, which was pretty amazing. And they did Schizophrenia, and they did all those. But check them out. Just give it a chance. Quattro's a pretty good one. Chaos is pretty good. But I'm telling you, Roarback is a good album, and the CD is it'll blow your mind. It really will.
Sick.
But as I was telling Brandon before the I think we're supposed to have 4 of us, but I think the 3 of us can certainly carry this conversation and as it shows. But I mean, there's there's like a new wave of modern death metal, and it's all good. In fact, when you mentioned we saw I Am Morbid, which I guess is like basically Morbid Angel, but because they did Altars of Madness or something live, and but there was a band that was on that bill that is in my new. I did a new wave of modern death metal top big 4, like
Oh, wow.
within the last 10 years, and I'll show it to you if you want. But one of the bands was Mortiferum, but this band right here is at the top of the heap. Blood Incantation. And if you don't know anything about them, and if you've never seen them live, you're missing out. These guys are absolutely incredible. I don't even know how to describe what they're doing. You'll get everything from ambience to death metal to acoustic guitar to even some jazz flavor like we talked about.
Yep.
And my mother, who is a classically trained musician and played in a jazz combo from the time she was a child, I got really jazz influenced. And so when bands like Death came out with Human, I was freaking out because I could hear the syncopated rhythms and the jazz sections all through there. But so Blood Incantation is at the top of the heap. And then this band, Mortiferum, from Seattle, Washington, or Yakima, or up there. It's up there in Washington Way. But these albums rival anything that we heard in the 90s from the Swedes. They're that good. And then Canada's own, they're from Toronto, right up there where the Rush Boys are for, Tomb Mold.
Oh, that's a great band.
This has got a horn section, piano, but it's death metal, and I'm not kidding you. This sounds like it should. That's what people don't understand. They're like, oh, if it's not just the tradition. I said, no, you have to listen to it. I mean, you have to. And then last but not least, in fact, I made an ass of myself because my wife and I went to Salt Lake for something, and we just happened to. I'm trying to think. What was the death cover band?
Death to All.
Death to All, and they were playing, so we went and saw them. But I wanted to see this band, Mortuous, from San Jose. These guys are incredible. Well, there was a very attractive woman selling T-shirts, and I thought, well, they bring a hot merch chick, and people will want to buy their stuff. Well, then I turned around, and she's on stage. She's the bass player, and I come to find out that it's Paul Riedel's wife, who's the brainchild of Blood Incantation, and she was just bored, and he's out on the road, so she goes out on the road and subs for the bass player here at Mortuous. So Mortuous, Mortiferum, Tomb Mold, and Blood Incantation, that would be the new, well, in my opinion, that would be the new modern Big Four. And so if you haven't even heard of them, man, pay attention, because these dudes all those bands are just, they're terrific. It's like, when are they going to come out with something new? Mortiferum's got something in the works that'll be out mid next year. Blood Incantation, same, probably spring of next year. And I'm just excited. What are they going to come up with next? Because they've covered such a wide variety. I mean, they've taken what Death did with some of those later records and expanded it into a whole new universe times 10. So anyway, and I even did one for Texas, but I won't bore you with that.
Yeah, you told me, which is so great. Blood Incantation, weirdly enough, I agree with you, but that is a bit of a controversial pick. I've heard it has kind of divided the fan base, because I've heard people call it hipster death metal and shit. I
call it what you want. All you got to do is see them live, and then come talk to me, and I'll meet you in the parking lot. Seriously.
Yeah.
Because even my wife is very traditionalist. She loves Cannibal Corpse, Slayer. She's into the old school 90s rugged whatever, and we went to Blood Incantation, and she just stared off into space, saying that might have been the best show I've ever seen.
Oh, wow.
And these guys play their own instruments. There's no backtracking. There's no special effects. They just get down and riff, and there's no dialect about, oh, let's all get along, or whatever. There's none of that. It's just they take you, they stuff you into the rocket ship and send you into outer space. And then they bring you back and land you and say, thanks for taking the ride with us.
I love the sci-fi elements too. So awesome. So awesome.
Hypocrisy too.
Right.
Hypocrisy is much the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same with them.
They had, I mean, there's another one you could throw into the mix. I mean, not that they're I don't know that they're on Mount Rushmore, but
if I was to say like modern for me, like the first thing that comes to mind for like a great modern death metal band, Revocation. This
Yeah.
record, the Outer Ones, I just fucking love. I love the technical elements, the Lovecraftian lyrics. It's just so good. The time signature changes on this. It's just it itches such a good part of your brain. I love it. The
Yeah.
Outer Ones in their new album I thought was
Great.
pretty solid too. Their early stuff's pretty good, but for me, the Outer Ones was
The
that
some
seemed
of
like it
the
was on another level, you know.
some of the local bands like Asylum, who have been around about 10 years, and guys are going from their young or late teens, young 20s, now they're approaching 30, and they're getting better and better at their craft. This band in particular, called Asylum, they're starting to buy into those types of bands, and starting to incorporate those weird astral type elements into the music. And I think it's great because it doesn't they're making their own sound, but
Yeah.
yet it's still death metal.
So, to bring this back to like the big four of death metal, I'm just curious what you guys think. When it comes to your picks, was it just like whatever the best music is, or was it like, how influential the bands were?
I did a mix of it. To me, like I
Oh,
said, I just think of death. When I see someone not say death, I don't even watch the video. I'll scroll or past it because you'll see some of that stupidity rage bait now. But I was looking for like I wanted that aggression, like Cannibal Corpse to me too. Like I automatically should have put them in there, but I didn't put them in there because of the what we talked about. They're repetitive. They're all bangers. I've never heard a bad album from them. So I also wanted something where some of these bands had some really different sounds when you really look into some of the ones I picked. And I'm all about that different sound. And that's why I love, we just like Blood Incantation and so what? Real quick, but like when I was thinking of a four, like my local scene, Wretched Inferno, Bonginator, Frog Mallet, Practical Gore. These guys are just out there, just bringing brutality. They sound crazy. They are crazy. Go to the New England Death Metal Fun Time Bonanza. Talk about trying to stay sober somewhere. It's impossible. But they're bringing that spirit of that pure. So what these bands to me, aggression, not to be put in that stereotypical box, and because I think it's really important for death metal not to just be zombies and Satan 24/7, right? I think a lot of these bands are too talented for that. And that's why I looked at Death, like you watch his progression from, the first album to the last album, like a completely different band, different themes. And yeah, I was saying that. I was arguing with myself going, what are you even basing this on? Like, are these just your favorites? And I guess they're not, because Death always, for me, Death, Possessed, Cannibal Corpse, Suffocation, I would say, are my four favorites, right? But I changed it around. And I don't know, music, we could change our list in 6 months if you start listening to this stuff over and over. So, Brandon, I apologize. I can't even really tell you why I picked those four bands. They just came to me.
Yeah,
Well,
whatever's
see,
in your heart.
Well, and that's the other thing. At the same show, the Mortuous show, where we saw them, we were just totally blown away. We also saw a band from Denver called Oryx, three-piece band, brother, sister. Sister plays drums, brother does guitar and sings, and she stood there, and it was so loud, and they were so heavy. And I mean, I describe heavy as several things, but other than just sonically. But she turned to me after they got done playing, and she says, "I think my soul just left my body." They were so
Nice.
heavy, and so I think that's what happens is that stuff touches your heart, or you remember what you were doing, or the show that you went to, and so and I'm always looking for consistency. That's what kind of bugged me about the big four with, Slayer, Anthrax, whatever, because I thought Overkill is probably the most consistent band of any of those guys, even Exodus, and you can throw a couple of those Exodus in there, and nobody even talks about Impact is Imminent, which is probably, I think, technically their best record. But
That's my favorite album from them. Yeah.
yeah, and so
Thrash Under Pressure is amazing.
yeah. But the thing is I think I look for a little consistency. I look for feel. I look for what they did as far as influence. And I guess that's how I came up. I mean, when you say Immolation, what do you think? Dawn of Possession. Everybody thinks that. And even if you don't know Immolation, and that's why I was kind of vacillating. But like Obituary, I thought, well, I don't want to have all American bands. I want to try kind of spread the wealth a little bit. But how can you argue with Carcass? They've been here since the Grind Crusher days back in the or the mid '80s. So, uh, Brandon, to answer your question, we don't have an answer to your question.
No.
It's
Yeah.
just a feel thing.
Well, I kind of tried to look at this more technically. Like I kind of thought to pull all bands out of Florida, Tampa. Like I just felt like there were so many bands that came out of it. It's kind of like the thrash equivalent of like the Bay Area, where it just, to me, Anthrax shouldn't be there because they weren't a Bay Area band, and that's why Exodus should have been in the Big Four. So I thought, yeah, like, Possessed, I can totally see in that like death metal Big Four. But I don't know. It's just like I feel like all these bands coming out of like the same breeding ground just really cements like a Big
You just
Four.
made something hit me though. Like now that I'm thinking about this, because like the Big Four started with who sold the most albums of thrash bands, right? And it's those four. It's those four, and that's that. But if we're talking the Big Four as far as quality, I definitely see a lot of arguments. So I'm starting to go like, if we went to Big Four of death metal, who's the Big Four most selling out? Morbid Angel, right?
At one point, I read it. I used to be tight with Roadrunner and RC Records.
Yeah.
And they used to send me this like update of like, this is the State of the Union, every quarter. I used to get tapes from them, and I knew Morrisound and the Burns Brothers, and
wow.
they said at one point in time, Death was outselling all the death metal bands combined.
Really?
Wow.
So load that one up in your brain, so look back at 89 and 90 and 91, and Death was outselling everybody.
I always
as a
assumed
group.
it was Cannibal Corpse. They were in fucking Ace Ventura.
Yeah.
It's like when when it comes to like just an average person, if they can name any death metal band, it's gonna be Cannibal Corpse. Hammered Smash Face.
Well, and remember, Cannibal Corpse has put out how many records? Like 20?
Yeah.
And Death was cut short.
Yep.
So I think longevity has something to do with it, because and their name is still out there. Cannibal Corpse, they're still touring. Death is not still touring. So the less you talk about them, the more they fade away, unfortunately.
It's true. I remember Morbid Angel. I don't know if you guys remember, they were the first death metal band to go to a major label. They were on BMG, and he started talking shit to, that famous thing those metal bands do, right? Quiet Riot did it. They started shooting off their mouths. We're better than everybody. That was one of their declines. But I'll never forget that, because I remember being like, this is crazy that they were on this label. And I never saw one. They fumbled it so poorly. Like they literally just did everything the wrong way. And I was trying to think of that too, right? There hasn't really been many that got on a label like that, right? Like everybody, I mean, Roadrunner Road Racer was a big label for the independent. They were huge. They had everybody, right? Typo and Biohazard and every freaking Sepultura.
And Dream Theater at one point.
Dream Theater, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even Deicide, man. Like, that is true. Like, not a lot of those bands like really made.
I think the closest,
that's a good,
maybe
the closest big band might have been Violence when they got signed to Mechanic, which was a subsidiary of MCA. But they screwed them. I mean, Sony CBS bought Combat Records out, fired everybody on the label except for Cyclone Temple of all people, and then basically just flushed no offense to them, by the way.
No.
But I mean, we're talking Exodus, Devastation, Forced Entry. I mean, there were some heavy hitters on that label, and they flushed it. And then MCA said, "Well, maybe there's something to this. We want to compete with Sony," and so they picked up Wrathchild America and Violence, and they ruined Violence. I know Phil probably doesn't want to talk about it, Phil Demmel, but I know him, and he's just like, they wanted us to wear silver tuxedos for a photo shoot once. I mean, I'm like, dude, that's not very Bay Area thrash now, is it?
No.
And in fact, that and you know the story with Paraplegic, they put out Oppressing the Masses with Paraplegic on it. They sent it out, and then they got so much backwash from all the powers that be that they had to return 25,000 records. Ouch. Because it had Paraplegic on there. And if you have one of those, now you got that's gold right there. And unfortunately, they put it out on an independent Megaforce put out the EP that had Torture Tactics and Paraplegic and a live version of Officer Nice and whatever else. But man, MCA, the big corporate label, completely ruined them. So I mean, I can see why they ruined Morbid Angel, because that's what labels do. They ruin. I think they ruin everybody because you have to conform.
Yep.
Rigor mortis. I mean, Bruce Corbett, personal friend of mine, rest in peace. He'll be the first to tell you they sold 280,000 records of that first rigor mortis, and the company is like, well, I don't know, it's really not that good. This next one better be better. I mean, are you kidding me? Okay, I realized back there in what was it, 90, that 250,000 records maybe wasn't a lot, but it was rigor mortis. It wasn't Britney Spears, right? So I don't know. I think and we could go on for days too with another episode about the climate of record labels in general and how the music business is run
within every genre, honestly.
Yeah, in every genre. And I think that most of these cats are probably better off being independent.
Well,
that's a good point.
You know, with Metal Blade Records, they took such good care of like Brian Slagle, you know, who was just like coming out of a record store and was like, fuck it, I'm just going to make my own label and not have like this corporate, this massive, you know, corporate mindset backing him. It's unfortunate. And it was in thrash metal. I think most notoriously the new wave of British heavy metal, I think, is that when labels killed like the most bands. But yeah, it's unfortunate, you know. And I think also, to add to like the big four of death metal, another thing to think about are just like the bands that were influential that just like never really went anywhere. Necrovore, for example, really just put out like a demo. Morbid Angel said was extremely influential to them and many other bands, but that they just put out a demo. There's so many great death metal bands. Thanatos, for example, their first couple, I think they're from like 84.
Yeah.
You know, it's just insane. There's some really like early death metal out there that people just don't really talk about.
Have you heard of a band called Decomposed?
I might
from 86 or 86 or 87. I think that the guitarist, his father was the crazy Arthur Brown.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow.
Remember that kid?
Yeah.
And they Decomposed put out an EP, and then they put out a full-length record, and it, quite honestly, is the architecture for these new kind of death doom, funeral doom type of records. Very influential, but they went nowhere because they weren't on a big label.
Yeah, which is like, again, like, you know, when it comes to the iceberg of death metal, that's a topic within itself as well. There was just so many. It's so interesting with death metal because it's like with thrash metal, you can see where it really evolves from, but it feels like with death metal, it was like snap of the fingers, the genre's there. You know, it wasn't really a slow build. Of course, you have like Slayer, you know, and then there's some other bands you can definitely pull from, like the German thrash scene for sure, like Creator. That debut, you can argue, has a lot of death metal in it. But I don't know. It feels like a genre that just like came and went so quick.
Well, I think there were so many thrash bands, and that people were still they were like addicted all of a sudden. And it's like anything, they wanted something heavier and faster. And people said, well, hey, let's just downtune a little bit and still play thrash, and then maybe gurgle and gargle a little bit. You know, a guy had a cold or whatever, and said, hey, that sounds pretty good. I mean,
I think a Master, that band Master too, that gets right.
And they're still playing.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, they've never sold copies, right? But any legendary band will be like, that band was everything we're about.
Incubus from Louisiana. That was what were they, a Probacom now? They changed their name because But I mean, they were heavy. They were super heavy. But once again, I think you're right, Brandon. I think that the transition from ripping thrash metal to a heavier version of that, which was death metal, but I think quite honestly, that's what spawned death metal, was someone seeking a heavier, faster groove heavy metal, and there you go. But
Yeah, like I think was it I believe it was like Morbid Angel that was like literally the band was doing like occult rituals and shit. And they were like, we want to make music to like, satisfy the deities and the demons we talk to. Like
Well, it
there's some
certainly had
real
an
shit.
evil
Right.
death metal
Oh yeah.
certainly had an evil edge to it, and that's why I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm a church going guy. I still am active in my church, and people look at me like, well, what kind of music do you listen to? And I'm like, I'm not sure you're ready for this conversation
Yeah.
because they think death metal and they think evil, satanic, it's all bad and whatever, and yet like you just said, Brandon, there are all sorts of space themes and all sorts of other ideas now that are involved in this. And maybe early on it was all, I mean, certainly Deicide, that sort of had a satanic edge, just a little bit.
Well,
Yeah.
I'd say if you,
Just a little
burn
tiny.
an inverted cross in your forehead, it might be a little satanic.
Right. That's
Little.
pretty much a sign you're committed to the cause there. But
A lot of them say now, and I don't know if they're just saying that because times have changed, but they're like, we were just anti-establishment, right? So we were just trying to be shock. Like even Slayer will say that now, like we were just doing this to cause controversy. But I think that's changed over the decades. I think these were young kids into some crazy shit at the time. But you start maturing and you start seeing different parts of life and different people, and you want to respect everything. But I've heard that excuse a lot, where everyone's just like counterculture, anti-establishment. I'm like, you can go multiple different ways with that when you're doing that, like the hardcore bands and everything. So, yeah, I think it's one of those things that there were people into certain things and it's evolved into something greater over time. Because I think that's the worst thing when it's a stereotypical sound, right? I can't stand when one genre is just like, we're all going to sound the same themes, same lyrics. It gets tired really fast. So I love this where it's went. And there's some purists that don't. I still talk to people that they don't want to hear the space themes. And I'm like, I love the space theme. I think that's some crazy shit. I want aliens up there sacrificing each other and banging tailpipes. Like, that is the content I'm into with heavy riffs. It sounds good to me.
because it's different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and the
it's
idea
fun.
that, like, you think Lovecraftian themes don't work with the sound of death metal. It's like, are you
Right.
kidding? Do you even know
Right.
what that is? But yeah,
Yeah.
man, it's I don't know. It's a very diversive topic, this, because you have a
Yep.
lot of hardcore diehard people who are like,
You do.
if you don't know, all 200 of these bands, every song, every album, you're a poser.
Well, and
You
that's
go on
that's
Metal
an,
Archives, death metal bands. I think, for last time I checked, there's 60,000 in Metal
Wow.
Archives alone. It's like there's so fucking many. And again,
Yep.
that goes to your point of like, it's a lot of it's repetitive, and it's
Yeah.
a genre that's really easily repetitive. Just blast beats, just and just
Yep.
scream over it. But there's a lot of fucking amazing music, more than some stuff, like more amazing than some of the best thrash, in my opinion. Just some great shit. And yeah, this was a lot of fun. It was great talking death metal. Hopefully no one throws a bomb through my window for this conversation. That's
won't
why
be
we
one
will
of
never
us.
do a black metal thing, because like that's
Oh,
gosh, no.
that's
Yeah. We'll need
that's a
security
fan
for that.
base.
Yeah.
I just, as much as I love the genre, it's just, I don't know, unless I have like literally a member who's in like, Dark Throne on this channel or podcast, maybe.
The thing is, I'll say real quick is that I've met a lot of these guys now, and they're so different than everything. And again, I don't know what, in 94, when people were 16, 17, with horrible influences doing really stupid shit, and then you mature, right, and get out of it, or there's been a lot of not original members. But behind the scenes, these guys are fucking goofy. They're fucking tap dancing. They're fucking playing flutes. They're talking about comedy. I couldn't believe it, because I'd be like, holy shit, what's this going to be like? Total opposite of what I thought. I think it's what you said, the fan base.
Dude, like, and not to talk about this too much, but Varg, for example, dude's on fucking TikTok, and
That's
he's responding
crazy.
to comments with like heart eye emojis
Yep.
and stuff. It's like, what the fuck is going on? But yeah,
It's
so a
weird.
lot of there's a lot of like I don't know. I think there's a lot of like prog metal people in that community too, because it's like you get like with black metal fans, it's like you get the hardcore people, and then you get like the neck beards with the fucking, I don't know. It's just, it's a weird ass fan base, but there's some great
entertainment
fucking music.
all aspects of entertainment, music, movies, whatever. I mean, they all have their hardcore people that just won't budge.
Yep.
I'd rather be open to hear something even more amazing. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I waved off Heartwork by Carcass because I just thought, what are
Wow.
they doing, man? I mean, it's not necroticism. What's going on here? And then my friend said, no, just slow your roll.
Yep. That's
Just
my
let
favorite
it.
Carcass album. I love, which sounds crazy. People think I'm so intense. It would be that I have listened to that album as much, that and Death Symbolic. I've probably listened to more than any two albums in my life. I love those albums, and they're not their heaviest on any level.
Right. And
For me, it's like, yeah.
if you love Heartwork, find the Par Street demos for Heartwork.
Okay.
There's a little different twist on all the songs, and there's
Yep.
enough to where it's noticeable, but it's still greatness. It'll be like listening to a new Heartwork record.
Oh, sick.
I'll have to
Yeah.
check those out.
Check it out.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, I was like super into like technical thrash when I was getting to death metal. So Sounds of Perseverance, like that just
Oh,
grabbed
yeah.
me by the balls when I first heard
Yep.
that. And then from there, I definitely went in the more like technical route for death metal. And then of course, when I got into old school, I was like, yes, this is it. This is just fucking
Right.
awesome. But anyway, there's some great old school thrash out there, old school death metal, and some modern stuff too. That's pretty great. We might have to turn this into like a series almost, talk, because I think UK death metal super underrated. Super underrated. There's some good fucking stuff over there. And Metal Madman, Carcass John, thank you for joining me once again. Make sure to like and subscribe. Check out the Patreon as well. I'm Brandon Battick, and this has been Disturbing the Priest.